Hello everyone, here is another hard level puzzle with a lot of interesting twists. There are a lot of goodies in this puzzle, but without spotting the skyscraper and the two-string kite, this would have been really difficult to solve. So I'm going to show you how to spot those, but first I'm going to run through the numbers 1 through 9 and see if I can place any easy numbers. Along the way, I will enter candidates using Snyder notation. And then later on, when I don't see any more low-hanging fruit, I will switch to cell notation. Okay, let's start with the number 1. And as you can see, there's only one given, so there's really not much I can do with that at this point. Okay, let's look at the number 2. And there's a 2 here, and a 2 here, and another 2 here. So that means I can pencil in 2s in block 6. Now I'm starting off with Snyder notation, as I said before, which means that I will be only penciling in candidates if they are restricted to 2 and only 2 cells in a block. If they can go into more than 2 cells in a block, I will leave that alone for now. All right, so here the 2s can only go into these 2 cells, so that conforms to Snyder notation. All right, I don't see anything more I can do with the 2 for now. How about the number 3? Well, you can see the number 3 can be penciled into these 3 cells. So sticking to Snyder notation for now, I'm not penciling that in. All right, let's move on to the number 4. And I can pencil in 4s here, and here, and down here in block 7. And because of all of these 4s, I can place a 4 here. And so now, because of this 4, this cell has to be a 4. And now we have a 4 here, a 4 here, and a 4 here. So this has to be a 4. And now, because I used Snyder notation before, and this cell can no longer be a 4, so this has to be the 4. And now it looks like we have all the 4s placed in this puzzle. All right, let's move on to the number 5. And here's a 5. And is there another 5 in this puzzle? No, I don't see another 5. So let's move on to the number 6. And there's a bunch of 6s, 2 here and 2 here, so we can place a 6 here. And here in block 4, because of the 6 here and the 6 here, I can pencil in 6s here and here. Let's see, what about the bottom rank? And we have this 6 here, and this 6 here, so we can place a 6 here. And now I can get rid of this 6 here. And so this cell has to be a 6. And so now we have a 6 here, and a 6 here, and a 6 here, so this has to be a 6. And now because of this 6, and this 6, this has to be a 6. And now I think we've placed all the 6s. Yes, we've placed all the 6s. All right, moving on to the number 7. There's a 7 here and a 7 here. So I can pencil in 7s here and here. And there's a 7 here and a 7 here. So because of this 7, I can pencil in 7s here and here. And now here in block 6, we have these 3 7s all pointing into the block. So this cell has to be a 7, which means this is the 2. And now we have 7, 7. So where can a 7 go in block 5? It can only go here. And we also have 7s up here, and this forms an X-wing pattern. So these 2 columns have to be 7s. So that means down here in block 8, we can only have 7s here and here. Okay, let's move on to the number 8. We have an 8 here, and we have an 8 here. So I can go ahead and pencil in 8s here and here. All right, what about here in block 2? These two columns can't have 8s in them, and this row can't because of this 8, so this has to be the 8. And here in block 4, these two rows can't have 8s in them, so I can pencil in 8s in these two cells. And now coming down here, this cannot be an 8 because of these two 8s. These cells can't be 8s, so I can pencil in 8s down here. And there we go. Okay, so I think that's about all we can do with the 8s. So now what about the 9? We have a 9 here, and a 9 here, and a 9 here, so that means this has to be a 9. And let's see, anything else? Of these two 9s, this has to be a 9. And where would a 9 go here in block 9? Well, it can't go here because of this 9. And it can't go here because of this 9. So I can pencil it in here and here. And let's see, here, can a 9 go in block 8? Well, it can't go here or here, so I can pencil in 9s here and here. And what about block 7? We can't have a 9 here or here, so this has to be a 9. And so now this cannot be a 9, so this has to be the 9. And then this cannot be a 9, and that makes this the 9. So you can see how using Snyder notation pays off big time at the beginning stages of solving a puzzle. And so have we taken care of all the 9s? Oh, look at that. This column has just one number missing, so let's fill it in with the 1. And let's see, I think, oh wait, I just saw this, 8 here. Okay, so that means this can't be an 8. And this has to be the 8. Okay, is there anything else that I'm missing? 6, 1, nothing. 6, 2, 4, 8, 1. Okay, so now I'm going to look around for a unit that has just 2 cells remaining. And a unit, of course, is a row, a column, or a block. So here we have a row, and there are just 2 empty cells in this row. So I can enter in the candidates. And now this is not considered Snyder notation. I'm entering in all the possible candidates in a cell. So I'm going to pencil in the candidates in the center of the cell rather than in the corners. When I'm using Snyder notation, I pencil it in the corners, and when I'm using cell notation, I pencil it in the center. So let's take a look at this row and see what's missing. And we're missing the 1 and the 5. The 1 and 5 are missing from this row. So this row can only be a 1 or a 5 and nothing else. So I'm going to pencil that in the center of the cell. And this cell can also be only a 1 or a 5 and nothing else. And then here in this block, block 6, there are just these 2 cells remaining, and so I can pencil in the 1 and the 5 in this cell. And now if these 2 cells are a 1 and a 5, then what else is missing in this column? So this cell has to be a 3. And so now I can pencil in 3s up here. And so since I'm using Snyder notation for the 3s here, I'm putting the notation in the corners, and that means that the candidate, in this case the 3, is restricted to just 2 cells in a block. And that's these 2 cells. But when I pencil in the center of a cell instead of the corner, then it's considered cell notation, and that is all the possible candidates for that particular cell. So for example, this cell can only be a 1 or a 5. There are no other candidates that can go in this cell or this cell, or this cell. So now we have just 2 cells that are remaining here in block 9. So I can fill that in. And since it's in the same block and only 2 cells, I can use either cell notation or Snyder notation. It doesn't really matter. So what's left? And I'm going to use center notation. This can be a 1 or a 5. And this can be a 1 or a 5. Okay, so now let's take a look across this row. And this can be, what can this cell be? It can be a 1, a 5, or a 7. And this cell can be a 1, 5, or a 7. Now let's just fill in the cells in this block. This can be a 3 or a 5. And this can be a 3, 5, or 7. And this can also be a 3, 5, or 7. And I can take away the Snyder notation. Okay, so now I'm going to go around and fill in the rest of the cells. So let's see here in block 1, what are we missing? This can be a 2, 3, or a 5. And this can be a 2, 3, or a 5. And here also. Oh, and here in this row, there are just 2 cells remaining. So this cell has to be either a 3 or a 5, right? And now here in column 1, we have a 3, 5 here, and a 2, 3, 5 here, and a 2, 3, 5 here. So we have a naked triple here, and that means that this cell cannot be a 3 or a 5. And this cell cannot be a 3 or a 5. So what can it be? It can be a 1. It can be an 8. And then what can this cell be? It can be a 1 or an 8. So I have a 1, 8 matching pair here, column 1. Okay, I see I have a 1 here and a 1 here. So I can place 1s here and here. Let's see, this column has 2 more cells we can fill. This cell can be a 1, 3, 5. And this cell can't be a 1, but it can be a 3 or a 5. And let me finish off this block. This cell can be a 1, 2, or a 5. And this cell can also be a 1, 2, or a 5. And now there are only 2 cells left in this row, so I'm going to fill that in. This cell can be a 2, 3, or a 5. And what's this? It can be a 1, 2, 3, or a 5. Okay, let's take a look at column 5. And we have just 2 cells left to fill in, so let's see. This cell can be a 1, 2, 5, or 7. And let's see, the 1 can't go in this top cell, so in column 5 we can only have 1s here and here. That might be useful later. Okay, now this cell can be a 2, 3, 5, 7. And that fills in column 5. All right. Oh, now I see something interesting here in column 8. This can be a 1, and this cell can be a 1. So there are only 2 cells in this column that can be a 1. And remember, before we noticed in column 5, there were also only 2 cells that could be a 1. So now we have something. And this is called a skyscraper pattern. And let me highlight the 4 cells in green. Okay, there we go. It looks sort of like an offset X-wing. Either these 2 cells are true or these 2 cells are true. So that means one of these 2 cells has to be a 1, and therefore any cells that see both of these cells cannot be a 1, so I can get rid of this one here. So now what can this cell be? It can be a 3 and a 5. And this cell also sees both of the highlighted cells. That's the roof of the skyscraper. And now I can get rid of the 1 in this cell. And so now that I got rid of the 1 here in block 2, there is only one place that a 1 can go, and that is here. So this cell has to be a 1. Before I fill that in, let's just look at this last cell remaining in the block. And what can this be? It can't be a 1. It can be a 2, a 3, a 5, and a 7. So now let's go back to this cell, and you can see clearly that this is the only cell that can be a 1. So let's place that. And so that skyscraper was very helpful. All right, let's get rid of all these green highlights. Okay, let's take a look at this cell here. It can't be a 1. Can it be a 2? Yes. 3? Yes. Can't be a 4, 5, 6, or 7, or an 8 or a 9. So this cell is either a 2 or a 3. All right, let's have a look around some more. And, oh, this can no longer be a 1. Okay. So I might as well just finish filling in all the cells. And what can this be? It can be a 1, 2, no, 3, yes, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, no. So this can only be a 1 or a 3. And this could be a 3 or a 5. All right, what can this cell be? It can be a 1, a 5, and a 7. That's it. This can be a 1, 5, and 7. And here we have a locked pair of 7s in this column. The 7s have to be in one of these 2 cells, since this cell here, the 3, 5 here in column 4, cannot be a 7. So since one of these 2 cells has to be a 7, then this cell cannot be a 7. And so now we have just a 2, 5 in this cell. Let's move on to this cell now. Let's get rid of that corner notation. And this can be a 1. Can't be a 2. It can be a 3. Can't be a 4. It can be a 5. 6, 7, no. Can it be an 8? Yes. Not a 9. So one of these 2 cells has to be an 8. All right. Oh, this can't be a 5 because of this 5. That was a mistake, which happens. But eventually I catch them, right? So let's get rid of that 5. So this cell is a 1 or a 7. And let's see what this cell is. It can be a 1, 2, not a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's just a 1 or a 2. And what about this last cell? Let's see, it can be a 1, a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Can it be a 7? Yes. 8? Yes. So this is a 1, 2, 7, or 8. And we have another lock pair here, these 2s. They have to be in one of these 2 cells in block 7, column 2. One of these 2 cells has to be a 2, and there's nowhere else for them to go in block 7. So that means that since one of these two cells has to be the 2, then this cell up here can't be a 2. So I can eliminate this 2. And so now we have the 2's here in this column, column 1, and the 2's here in this column, column 2, and the 2 in column 3 is already done. That is great. Okay, so these cells are 2, 3, or 5. And this cell is a 3 or a 5. And this cell is a 3 or a 5. And this cell is a 3 or a 5. And this cell is a 3 or a 5. So we have a lot of cells here with just a 3 and a 5. And look here in the top row also, we have a 3-5 matching pair, right? One of these cells is a 3 and one is a 5, so that means I can get rid of the 3, 5 here. And also here, I wonder if I should have seen that earlier. And so now I have a 2, 7 pair and a 3, 5 pair in the top row. And since the 2, 7 pair is in the same block, then that means this cell cannot be a 2, so let's get rid of that. And here in column 5, the 3's are in the same block, so one of these cells has to be the 3, so I can get rid of this 3. And let's take a closer look at the 3, 5 here, and the 3, 5 here. And we also have a 3, 5 here. So we have a 3, 5 here, a 3, 5 here, and a 3, 5 here, and a 3, 5, 7 here, and a 5, 7 here. Okay, so what we have here is called a 2-string kite, if you want to give it a name. Let me change this color to purple. Okay, so what we have here is 1 string. And this is the other string. Here, let me make this purple. So we have a 2-string kite here on the 5, and let's see how this works. There are only 2 5's in this row. That's the 4th row. So only one of these cells can be true at the same time. And there are only 2 5's in column 6. So only one of these cells can be true at the same time. So we have a row with 2 possible 5's and a column with only 2 possible 5's, and they converge in the same block, block 5. So now these 2 green cells cannot both be true at the same time, but one of them is true. So now any cell that sees both of these green cells cannot be a 5, and so I can get rid of this 5. And I have a video tutorial on the 2-string kite. If you're interested, go ahead and watch that. You might want to check that out. Okay, let's go ahead unlighting things. And so now that I've got rid of that 5, this row just has 2 cells that have a 5. Let me highlight that. And this row down here also has just 2 cells that can be a 5. Let's highlight those. And now we have another skyscraper pattern. If you can see that, they're actually quite common. You just have to look for them and you have to know what you're looking. And yes, I do have a video tutorial on the skyscraper pattern, so you might want to check that out as well. Okay, so you can see the 4 cells that make up the skyscraper are highlighted in green. It's almost like an X-wing, but it's offset. It has a base here and the roof here. So one of these 2 cells has to be a 5, that's the roof part. It means any cell that sees both of these cells cannot be a 5, and so this cell sees both cells of the skyscraper roof, and therefore it cannot be a 5. Let me quickly run through the logic of this, and let's change the colors to green and purple. I guess the other purple before was really pink. Okay, If this first cell is not a 5, then this last cell has to be a 5, because if this first cell is not a 5, then this is a 5, and then this is not a 5, and then this is a 5. One of these cells is a 5, so then this cell can't be a 5, so it has to be the 3. Go ahead and get rid of all the highlights here. And so now this can't be a 3, so this has to be a 1, and then we can get rid of the 1 here and the 1 here. And so now we have a 5-7 pair here, so that means this can't be a 5, so it has to be a 2. And that makes this a 3, and now this has to be a 2, and I think the whole puzzle is going to unravel from here on. We can get rid of the 2 here and here. This is now a 3, so this can no longer be a 3, and this also can't be a 3, so it has to be a 5, which makes this a 7, and then this is a 2, and that makes this a 7, and this can't be a 7 anymore, and this can't be a 5 anymore, so it's a 2. And so now this can't be a 2, so this is a 1-5 pair, so that means this cell can't be a 5, so it's a 3, which makes this a 5. Do you see how this is unraveling so quickly? It means this has to be a 1, and then this is a 7, and then this is an 8, which makes this a 3, and this is a 5, and this is an 8. And so now, since that is an 8, this is a 1, and this can't be a 5 anymore. So now this row has just 1 cell left, and that's called a full house, by the way, so it's a 3. And then this is a 5, and now this can't be a 7, since there is a 7 in the row, so this is a 5, which makes this a 7. And then this is a 5, and this is a 1, and this is a 5, and this is a 1, and now this is a 5, this is a 1, and let's finish this up. 3, 2, and the puzzle is done. That was a nice puzzle. I'm not sure I could have solved it without the 2 skyscrapers and the 2-string kite. Maybe, but that sure made it a lot easier. Please go ahead and give this puzzle a try and let me know what you think. See if you can use those strategies, or maybe you can come up with your own logic. I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. If you did, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps me. It helps my channel grow, and I really appreciate it. And as always, I hope you learned something. Bye.